Open your eyes.
The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild recently turned 2 years old, and I'm still playing that game regularly to this day. I have no problem saying it's become my new favorite game of all time, but let's explore why. At the core of Breath of the Wild's design is a philosophy that deeply resonates with my own worldview in many ways. Breath of the Wild's art direction often gets compared to the animation of Studio Ghibli movies, but I also find a similar message in both Breath of the Wild and the animist themes of Hayao Miyazaki's films. This is most readily apparent in Breath of the Wild's version of the Kingdom of Hyrule. My favorite games have a strong sense of place. Going back to them feels like going back to a real-world location. These are places that are characters in their own right, and Breath of the Wild's Hyrule is probably the best example of this. Everything in Hyrule expresses agency through the game's complex and interrelating systems. The world feels alive, like there's a literal life force running through every element of this game. Breath of the Wild abandons the checklists and icon-filled minimaps of other contemporary open-world games, and instead makes simply observing and being in the world important acts that grant player an active role in how the game reveals itself. Instead of being a world to be conquered, Hyrule is a place to be explored and experienced. Breath of the Wild even lets you turn off the HUD so that you can simply witness the world itself. That philosophy extends to the way players interact with the landscape and its inhabitants as well. In many other open world games, I often feel like I'm being treated as if I'm a super-powered interloper that's somehow separate from the world of the game, and that my main goal is to collect and consume a long checklist of content. Breath of the Wild rejects this idea, and instead embraces Link's inextricable role within the ecosystem of Hyrule itself. While the player can affect their surroundings, it's always in the context of interaction, rather than transaction or consumption, and the various gameplay systems, like weather, cooking, enemy behavior, and the loot system, act as checks and balances on Link's abilities. However, instead of hamstringing the player, the restrictions imposed by Breath of the Wild's gameplay act as opportunities for creative problem-solving by using the impeccably designed set of abilities that Link has access to from the early hours of the game. Link's status in the world of Hyrule is akin to how characters like Ashitaka in Princess Mononoke or Nausicaa in Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind are portrayed as participants in a wider, animate, and enchanted world that is far bigger than them. Many have complained about the durability system of the weapons, but I think this is rather ingenious. No matter how good of a weapon you find in the game, you're always reset to 0. Every weapon is going to break at some point, and while yes, you should use stronger weapons against stronger enemies, what really matters in Breath of the Wild is how well you prepare, and how well you know your tool set in order to overcome these challenges. It makes the player think, rather than just swing a sword. The weapon durability system also serves as a reminder that violence and combat aren't the only means for solving a problem. I mean, yes, the game mostly deals with combat scenarios, whether that's in the dungeons or out in the overworld. Breath of the Wild challenges the idea that a game must be about progression and rewards. Combat really isn't about gaining anything, it's simply another activity. The rewards at the end are either impermanent or unimportant. Instead, Breath of the Wild is a game where the doing is the most important part. What progression is present solely serves to funnel you back into experiencing more of these moments of system interplay. Link is enhanced by actually playing the game, rather than an arbitrary skill tree layered over the world. The numerous shrines, side quests, and other activities are rewards in and of themselves. This message isn't just implied through the game's mechanics either. The reward for collecting 900 Korok seeds is literally a large piece of tree poop. It's not exactly a subtle message from Nintendo. It's not about collecting a bunch of stuff, earning all the achievements, and winning. It's just about playing. This is something that I hope more games learn from Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is remarkable, not just because of how good its gameplay is, or how well the in-game systems intermingle, but because it's actually saying something profound through its gameplay. Breath of the Wild reminds us that life isn't just about progression, but experience, and that the world isn't meant to be conquered, it's meant to be interacted with. It might sound strange, but in a weird way, Breath of the Wild can reflect back to us the beauty and magic of our own world. That's why, even 2 years later, I still return to Breath of the Wild and find myself feeling the same sense of curiosity and excitement that I did when I first played it.